My name is Kevin Slaughter, and I'm the publisher of a book that has just been released on the 122nd anniversary of Nietzsche's The Antichrist and what is now being known as International Blasphemy Rights Day by the Center for Inquiry, September 30th. This is, of course, to commemorate the publication of the cartoons of Muhammad in a Dutch newspaper, triggering a wave of violence that has shook the Muslim countries to their core. Their most precious beliefs have been rocked, of course, by editorial cartoons. But either way, the book is titled The Sorceries and Scandals of Satan, and the author is Henry M. Tichenor. And I caution you now, we're probably going to be using a little bit of offensive or strong words. And we might be pushing our time limit, but we do want to get to questions, so bear with us if we go on. I'm going to introduce Robert Merciless, and he is going to talk about the book and this forgotten freethought author and elucidate on that, and then I'm going to come in and talk a little bit more about in more general terms. Robert?
Thank you, Kevin. Always great to be introduced by your publisher. I'm not Henry Tichenor. Henry Tichenor's been dead since 1924, but I have written the foreword to the book that Kevin has graciously agreed to republish almost 100 years after it went out of print. But the purpose of being here today is to maybe bring to your attention kind of a long-lost author from the early part of the 20th century, a skeptic of religion who was deeply involved in public debates about the dangers of religion in society, and he's been almost forgotten. And so we sort of came across him and thought it might be worthwhile in the age of Dawkins and Hitchens, which many people think are new and cutting edge. In a lot of ways they are, but they weren't the first. You know, we all know of Robert Ingersoll, but this guy is someone else that I would just like to bring to your attention for the purposes of talking about the history of skepticism, especially in the realm of religion. So Henry Tichenor was an anti-religious socialist writer and editor. One of my references said that he should be seen alongside Clarence Darrow and Madalyn Murray O'Hara as one of the leading American freethinkers of the 20th century. He was born around 1858 and died in 1924. In 1911, he started off as a journalist working mainly for the Chicago Tribune. In 1911, he sort of had some of his first published writings where he was a contributor to the National Socialist Monthly called the National Ripsaw. Then by 1914, he established his own publication called The Melting Pot. After The Melting Pot went for a few years, he turned to writing books and contributed to the Little Blue Book series. So this is what the guy was all about. And this was his magazine. It was the Melting Pot, they called it. And if it won't stand the fire of the melting pot, it's no good. It was a socialist monthly magazine, 50 cents a year. And the mission statement is it's hard to read here. This was from the first copy. But he basically talks about how the difference between truth and a lie, and how a lie has to be constantly fed to be kept alive by pulpit pounders and threats, etc. But the truth, like a pure metal going into the melting pot, can stand on its own. And the purpose of his publication was to expose to heat of public scrutiny the claims and behaviors of some of the evangelicals, and from his perspective as a socialist, he saw that organized religion was a tool of capitalism, keeping the working classes sort of in their place. And one of his targets was a evangelist. Arguably, some historians talk about Billy Sunday. He as being one of the first televangelists, because he was the first guy to be really big on radio. Then Tichenor in his magazine takes him on and attacks him as a tool of big business. So this was in 1917, 1918. Things started in January 1913 is the headline of this one. So it's kind of interesting. This was kind of demonstrates to my view the what was really in some ways I think Susan Jacoby calls it the golden age of free thought, where there was a bit more public debate and discussion about the skepticism against religion maybe 100 years ago than there is even today. The Socialist Party, which he was a part of, at this time was a viable political force in the country. Eugene Debs, socialist candidate for president, got 1 million votes in the 1916, 1920 elections. And that was, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that was 6% of the total. There were 2 Socialist Party members of the House of Representatives elected, several mayors, town and state legislators. So this was kind of a, prior to the Red Scare, the socialist movement was fairly sizable. And then within that, you have a few very vocal skeptics about religion. And this is sort of, this is one of the cartoons from one of his early publications, and it kind of tells the whole story in one graphic. I kind of thought it was worth showing. Here he's got the religious leader with a crown on his head with a dollar sign in front of the pulpit, and there's labor's product is all the money piled up behind the master class seated next to the preacher there. And then here's the poor working class family chained to the wage system. So this was his perspective. And so these are the books that he published after having had a run with the Melting Pot for a while. The first one in 1915 was called The Life and Exploits of Jehovah, focused on some of the more ridiculous claims and stories of burning bushes and the crimes of, claiming it was a great thing to kill all the firstborn in Egypt. Those sorts of wonderful stories from the Old Testament. The next book turned to the ills of Christianity in the New Testament, The Creed of Constantine, or The World Needs a New Religion. Now, both of those top 2 books, you can still find those. They're in a few libraries here and there. Both of them are available for full download from Google Books. The third book, though, The Sorceries and Scandals of Satan, is virtually lost. I came across it buried in a stack within the Library of Congress, thinking it was something different, and thought it was pretty fascinating. And I thought, who the hell is this guy that wrote this book? And I took a great deal of effort to ferret out any of the biographical information about him. And when I checked the book on WorldCat, there were only 11 libraries on the entire planet that listed that book still in existence. And so I was able to find a few nuggets of his biography and put the 2 and 2 together and thought, what we really need is to republish this nearly lost book. And I would write, and have now written, a bit of a biographical sketch of him and put that up front. And I took it to several publishers, was thrown flat out on my can until I came to Kevin, and he agreed to publish it. So that's where we stand today. So this is sort of how this particular book works. His whole idea is to enlighten the working classes, to let them, to convince them that their religious piety is preventing them from progress, that it's really a repressive tool of the capitalist over the working classes. And so the way he does it in this book is to compare and contrast the reputed minor sorceries and scandals of Satan with the obviously grossly horrific crimes of Jehovah in the Old Testament or his followers since then, including, he talks about the witch trials, he talks about the Inquisition, he talks about and it's just some of the absurdities from Christian mythology and the Faust myth. He uses Paradise Lost and things from biblical references as his tools. But also, and this is sort of what Kevin's going to sort of articulate a bit more, is it's also part of this long political and literary tradition of using Satan as kind of a foil or a symbol for rebellion against an oppressive social order. And so in that realm, he was not alone. There's a long history of this. Bakunin used it as in his symbology of his writings. And so the second half of the introduction or the foreword that we've got in the book details a lot of these examples throughout history of Satan as a symbolic, political, literary figure that people use to define or to represent liberty or rebellion against things. So that's what this is all about. It's kind of a nearly lost work, and we kind of see it as we joke about it being a literary rescue mission. This guy's long dead, and nobody's going to publish his works anymore. And his work it's all now public domain, but still almost lost. So that's what we're trying to do. And so this is our book. It's should be on Amazon here before too much longer, and that's what we've got. So without further ado, let me give it back to Mike, your publisher, Kevin.